We're live, and like always, I'll wait about a minute, minute and a half here to get some people showing up. There's no reason to start presenting, start talking until we get people here, and I'll try to cut this out for the replay for the actual video. Um, but yeah. So hopefully everyone's been good. Had a good week so far. Um, as always, been interesting. Been busy. Been really busy. But got a good presentation today. We're talking about SVGs, what they are, um, why I feel their popularity is what it is. Excuse me. Just see what we can get. All right. We'll wait just another minute or so. See if anyone starts showing up. Maybe it's just an off day for everyone. All right, well, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, today's talk is about SVGs. What are they? Why use them? What's the advantage of using them over using something else, perhaps? Things like that. And so, coming down the whole HTML5 route, like I said, part two. Anyways, so just want to talk uh, about those kind of things. And so we'll start off with kind of the basics, I think, which is what are SVGs? First of all, what does SVG stand for? SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. If any of you remember the older days of the web, graphics were nice and all and things like that, but if you had to scale the graphics, if you had to, you would develop an image, and an image would be in a certain size, and as long as you kept that size within a certain scale, then everything would be okay. But of course, as websites became more responsive, and as we went down the path of doing mobile first type applications and things like that, the ability to have hey there, uh, the ability to have images that could meet a certain size, actually meet multiple sizes, really didn't quite work so well. So basically, what we had to do is we had to come up with, well, not we, but the creators of HTML had to come up with some other way to actually figure out some way to generate images and to allow the web to display images and things like that, and make things a bit easier for us. And I think we're all happier they did. The idea of the S part of SVG is, like I said, that's what I was just talking about. As things resize, so does the image. What's great about SVGs is that there's two different kind of scaling points to SVGs. So, like most things, especially images, basically you end up having. Thanks a lot. You end up having the size that it actually is versus the size of the image itself. So that's what's really great. So you can have an image where you say, okay, I want this to take up 100% of this particular section here. I want to take up the width here, and maybe 50% of the height, or maybe you define a height, but then you want to be able to actually draw something on that canvas and not have to worry about what the actual size is. So in SVGs, there's actually two different settings for size. There's widths and heights, like you would see in a lot of HTML elements, But then there's actually a property called ViewBox, and ViewBox is what I would like to anyone that's ever done any kind of 3D work or things like that. You have you have the size of the viewport, and then you have the size of the world, and that's what ViewBox is. ViewBox is like the world size. What I mean when I say world size is uh, it's a size that's independent of how big it actually takes up on the screen, but how much actual drawing can take place. You know, if you say you've got zero zero to 100, well, you've basically given yourself 100 pixels in each direction. So you've got a very square size, and then whatever sizes you use, whatever actual plot points you use to plot your lines or your circles or your general points or whatever you're trying to put on there, then you end up you can actually draw those without having to worry about what the actual size is once the person views it on their page. And that's where SVGs really come into play. That's where they really are are helpful in the way of helping us display graphics and display those kinds of things. That's why lately you've seen SVGs used in a lot of places. It used to be, I know an example I'm going to use is Font Awesome, because Font Awesome, when it first came out, was a font library. They were one of the first ones to come out with this concept of having fonts that also had graphics inside of it, so you could put graphics in there and you could resize them. And it kind of worked the same way that SVGs did, but even eventually Font Awesome went to SVGs. What's great about that is then you can actually resize the actual size of of the actual icon that you're looking at. You can apply colors to it. You can actually do quite a few number of things. You can apply hover settings. You can apply this, you can apply that. There's quite a lot of different things that can be done with SVGs, and that's what makes it so makes them such a good thing to use, such a good concept to try to use when trying to do your own things. Actually, while I'm talking here, I think what I will try to do is let's see here, let's pop it over here. I will actually bring up Odin Bsoft components as well, just because I'll show my checkbox component that uses its own hand-drawn SVG. There it is. Okay, good. It's a very simple one, but yeah, so that'll be another part of the of this that we're talking about. But I've also got a very good example. It's not pretty, but it's functional, and that's the idea. The idea is to teach. I'm not so worried about it being perfect. I don't have time to make little perfections and all that. But I got the idea down. I at least show what I'm trying to show and why I think SVGs are so great. I read an article not too long ago. Not too long ago, it was like a day or two ago, where someone was saying, why should you use SVGs over Canvas? Well, Canvas is great. And don't get me wrong, I've been digging into Canvas. I love Canvas. I even spoke about it in the last stream. But Canvas is great for more complex things. Canvas is great for Web 3D, or for really intricate type interfaces more than just graphics. Yes, you could technically, I guess, use a Canvas, but you're instantiating, you're bringing in WebGL, which is a really heavy component to the browsers out there, whereas SVGs is a lot simpler, a lot smaller. They aren't as heavy, they aren't as weighty. So when you're trying to do the very basic things, there's really not much of a point in bringing in Canvas. Canvas is more for 3D interactive. If you want to create an interactive 3D site, that's where you bring in Canvas. You don't want to bring in Canvas just to do icons and things of that nature. So yeah, I couldn't believe I found that just before I came here, like a day before I came here. So it was a perfect thing to bring up and talk about. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and take off the overlay for now. That's mainly because I'm going to start screen sharing in just a second. So yeah, like I said, I've got here. Let me adjust myself a little bit. I've got an example I put together over the weekend. Kind of finalized a little bit just last night. Just trying to get something very basic. Like I said, it's not super pretty, but the concept is there. You've seen SVGs used a lot in in like charting applications. Rechart. That's when I was trying. I think last time I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember a charting library name, and I found it. It was Recharts. Recharts is one that uses SVGs and pretty much draw some. They're really really good looking, really nice looking, really interactive, and those kinds of things. And that's kind of the next thing I think is so great about SVGs is its graphics, but they're interactive. It's not like graphics of the past where you would hand draw. There were some charting libraries out there back in the day before HTML5 that would literally actually hand draw the image and then ship it to the front end, and then you would just display the image. But there was nothing you could do with it. It was just an image, and that was it. And there was absolutely no interactivity, nothing whatsoever. And so if you wanted to dig in further, you had to make changes, and then it would generate a new image and send it to the front end again. And it was this whole back and forth, hey, give me this. Okay, here we are. Here's this, that kind of stuff. So, I think that's probably where the SVG concept came from. I'm sure when they were trying to come up with something new, those kind of things got brought into the mix, into the conversation, and they said, hey, let's bring some interactivity, let's bring some real stuff to here. And I'm telling you, SVGs really, in my opinion, knock it out of the park. So we are going to go ahead and do a screen share. Today I'm using Code Sandbox. Code Sandbox kind of has a little bit more features to it than CodePen does. You'll see here in just a second. Let's share. Okay, there's the share. Are we doing it? Yep, we're doing it. And you can see the item on the left. All right. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully you can see very well. So this is an SVG. Over here is an SVG. I've created it to look something like a pie chart, basically. So that was the idea, is to try to emulate as good as possible a pie chart. I wanted it to be a lot more basic, to where I could just put in some styles and do this and do that. Once again, time limitations and all that kind of stopped me from actually getting down and making it something that I could make a smaller styles and actually just kind of stick stuff in there and have it work. If I'd had enough time and enough, to actually put into this, I probably could have done this in a more generic way. But you'll see the styles here in just a second. This here is very simple. Basically, when a particular part of the circle is hovered over, we've got an actual text item that shows up. Now, in most of the charting libraries, what will happen is, as my mouse moves, the actual text item will move with it. So that's usually what you'll see. But that would require a good amount of JavaScript done. Once again, time constraints and all that. Not really something that I had a lot of time to do. So I said, well, why not at least show some of the interactivity, what can be done? Now I'm going to show you here in a minute. There's absolutely no, the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to do something that would show that you don't even really need to have JavaScript to actually generate something that was at least somewhat useful. There's some other good ones out there I found. There's a bar chart example that was really good, that even had a slight delay on the animation and that kind of stuff. That's something I was hoping to get, is some kind of animation delay. But once again, time constraints, things like that. Let's go through this first. Okay, so the SVG itself, I was speaking of the viewbox property. Here's the viewbox property that I have. So basically, we've got this from 0, 0 up in the left-hand corner to 64, 64. So basically, we've got ourselves 64 potential. I don't know if it's pixels in this case. I'm guessing it's pixels to actually generate this in and all that. However, if you look over here, the actual size, the width is 300 pixels. So basically, we're keeping it at a 300 pixel width. So, and I believe it's just following suit with 300 by 300, since we're doing the size, since we're doing the whole square size item here. Anyways, I put a background of very nasty pink. That's that little pink thing you see there. And so, yeah, border radius is basically what makes this actually circular. If you watch, if I just go in here and I take this out. So it keeps you from seeing the sides like that. So that's what the whole border radius concept is doing. It's basically just making sure you don't see, the background behind it and all that. So there we we go. All right. So, yeah, set font sizes and things like that because this was getting kind of big. We're kind of zoomed in. I mean, this doesn't look like it would be 8 pixels of font size, but you got to realize this is 64 by 64. So, but we're in a width size of 300 pixels. So you're in a much larger size with a much smaller actual box. If we were to potentially, let's see, this is on the fly. I didn't try this out last night, so if this goes horribly wrong, we'll just have to reset it here. Let's try to go half the size. See, as I'm saying, now it looks a lot smaller. The text here looks a lot more like it would be 8 pixels in a font size and that type of stuff. So this is the scalable part of scalable vector graphics. So like I said, the view box is basically 64 pixels, but we can change it to any size we wish. So as we change the sizes, then things get bigger, but so does everything else. Now 8 pixels looks like this because basically it's almost like we're zooming in on this thing. So really it is 8 pixels, but it's 8 pixels zoomed in, because if you went to like the exact size that we're actually drawing at, it would look like it's supposed to. But as you make it bigger, as you make your graphic bigger, your SVG bigger, it actually makes everything else bigger proportionally. And that's why you see this does not look like it's an 8 pixel font size. But like I said, it's zoomed in, so you have to look at it that way. And so basically, yeah, I like I said, I wanted to do something a little bit more. I didn't want to have to do this whole part 1, part 2 stuff like this. I wanted to actually make it something, but then, how are you going to have one side one color, one side another color? I'm not saying it couldn't have been done. I'm just saying it would have taken, a good amount of work to actually do it. So I kind of just did some copy and paste stuff here. Made 2 parts, so it does look like an actual pie chart. Made the different things, made the different pieces there, so you can see the hover effects, and you can see not only the hover effects, but the fact that when I'm hovering over a particular section. So as you can see, I get to the very edge here, and it's still saying item 1. As soon as I cross over, there we go, item 2. So it actually knows which item is actually being hovered at this point. And here's the hover. Just it's the same basic CSS hover. So when the part 1 is hovering, then we say the text needs to be set to display block. When it's not hovering, the text is display none, but we go ahead and while we're in here, we set some stroke widths and some colors and things of that nature. Stroke width is how thick the actual line being drawn is. The stroke is actually the color. There's fill as well. Fill is like the color behind. So if you have something that's going to be written in the front, stroke to SVGs is almost like I think color property is in regular CSS. And then fill would almost be like background color is in regular CSS. That's kind of the difference there. In this case, we're using stroke for both of them. That's the example that I found. Okay, for some reason decided to refresh, or maybe I clicked the refresh by accident. But yeah, basically we keep the whole thing. Oh, I didn't even realize I'd done that. Huh. Yeah, I didn't change this to the new stroke width. I left it at the old stroke width, so 0.2. Now that one will refresh. Oh, no, that's not good. I think we'll change it back. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay, now we're back. We're back to working. So let's not go messing too much with that. It's because wrong stroke width. I was looking at the wrong one. That's the right. That's the right. Yeah, it's the right amount. There's that. That's that one here. Okay. So yeah, I mean it's pretty basic, but that's the idea. The idea to showcase is that it is pretty basic. That this isn't something that's really all that complex to do. You can definitely add more. You can definitely bring in a lot more features. Like I said, this doesn't have to just be displayed in a static location. You can have it track the mouse and things of that nature. You can easily pick up pieces. These are elements. G, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, is a group element. So it's an element allowing you to group multiple pieces together. Basically, I used G here to just group together different pieces. Initially, that was the concept. The concept was going to be, instead of doing part 1 and part 2 like you see here, it was just going to be G, and I was going to try to just do pi g text and have it set there. But then I realized that I needed the ability to have different colors. And that's why I went ahead and went with the whole part one concept because, gold, I don't want them both gold. I want gold, and I chose green, just something that offsets each other. And so yeah, that's why I went down that path. That's what I wanted to do though. I wanted to make it something that was specific to the group element here and style the group element a very specific way, and then just have very particulars for different parts. But like I said, time constraints, didn't really have the time to sit there and dig in. But yeah, you could definitely pick up different pieces. You could have JavaScript pick up, your text item. You can put an ID on it and actually do get element by ID. And when it comes, you could actually track the mouse position and have it follow the mouse position. I've seen that done in a lot of charting libraries. You'll do that if you look on X does something very similar. If you're on the actual desktop site and you're looking at your analytics, you'll go over and you'll see that the little analytics bubble will actually follow your mouse around and things like that. That's kind of the concept that I'm talking about here. That's the stuff that can be done, and honestly can be done very easily. It's a very cool effect, but honestly, it's not that difficult of an effect to do. It's really just JavaScript and tracking the mouse. So I do plan on getting eventually into JavaScript, but I'm stair stepping up. So I'm stair stepping up, HTML, and then probably go into some CSS, and then into some JavaScript. So if you stick with me, you'll probably end up seeing. Maybe I'll even come back to this because I'm going to save this here. Come back to this and maybe do some additions on it down the road. But this is really quite the basic thing. Like I said, this is the basic concept. It's really not that hard. It may look difficult, but honestly, it's not. There's a lot of really good examples out there about SVGs, about using different pieces, like circle, text. I think there's one called Polyline. Hang on, I'm looking at it right now. Yep, Polyline allows you to draw points in a line. It uses a multi-point system, XY coordinate type system, and you can draw multiple parts of the XY system. I'm gonna show you that here in just a minute. Actually, I'm gonna maybe even try to get a working example of my checkbox up so you can see what I'm talking about when I say that. So actually, why don't we stop sharing? And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hey there, how's it going, partner? Yeah, I just got back to seeing this. Just saw your message. Very good to see you here. So the next thing is going to be I'm gonna go ahead and bring up Bsoft components, the checkbox component. Good. I'm glad you're finding it interesting. The checkbox component, and like I said, I hand drew my own SVG mainly because what I needed with the checkbox component I created was I needed a partial check. And I like the concept of not using the default checkbox. A lot of times, most of the time, the default of anything is basically just it's not very stylish. Let's just be honest. It's not very stylish. And if you're creating custom components, people expect to have something that looks good. So you don't want to create something that looks like something they could do, because then why would they use your components, right? That's the idea, at least. So let me jump over here. I'm gonna go ahead while I'm rambling and just talk about. Let's see here. Here we'll use this. Let's see here. Bsoft. Let's see here, and then Bsoft components. All right. Yeah. Okay. So now we will run Storybook so I can show this to you, and then hopefully everything runs. It should. I was just doing some stuff with it last night. Well, I was looking at it last night. I wasn't doing stuff with it. All right, so here we are. I'll go ahead and share. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not in the right place. I need to be over here. There we go. And checkbox. All right, good. Okay, so now we are at that So I will go ahead and do a screen share of Storybook. For those of you that haven't seen me showcase my component library yet, I use what's called Storybook. Storybook's a really great testing library. Storybook and Chromatic are the two things that I use together. Chromatic, basically, whenever I do a PR for any of my components in Storybook, well, in my components period that have Storybook tests, and that the tests change, what happens is it deploys to Chromatic. Chromatic then allows you to run visual tests as you're looking at here, and so the visual tests allow you to look at things and to see how they're acting. In Chromatic, not here in Storybook, but in Chromatic, it will actually even show you the visual differences, which is really cool. It'll actually say, "Oh, look, see this over here. This has changed slightly." It'll put you like a little green outline to show you what the differences are, so your eyes drawn to what has changed. Allows a lot more visual checking of component things, and then the reviewer can actually go into Chromatic as well and can actually physically interact with your component and can actually do some well, no, not very basic, can actually just test your component as it's meant to, which is really cool. um, I'll look at this first. I was going to jump over to the code, but we'll take a look at what I'm talking about. So here's the checkbox, pretty basic. It's got a little animation with it that pops in and out as it's checked. So checkbox, yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah. Like I said, I'll show the SVG in a moment. But what I wanted to do is set a partial. So this thing here is able to be set to partial. We had some needs of partially checking a checkbox. So a good example is at my full-time job, which I've mentioned before, is Myosh. Um, we create. I might as well just say it again. We create software that basically allows users to create their own forms from a numerous number of form elements, and they can put the forms together. They can put them in groups together. They can have conditions where if one of the forms or one of the fields is answered a certain way, then this field becomes visible, or this entire section becomes visible. And if those new fields that have become visible, if some of them are required, now there are new requirements. However, if they don't go down that path, those items aren't required because they're hidden. So there's a lot of really interesting interactions and things like that, and a lot of what at least a good part of what I've done is the front end piece of this and a lot of the componentry for this. And so what we needed in our drop down is we needed the ability to have a select all. Well, but part of the select all was we wanted to be able to select all the items and then go through and uncheck a couple items and have that checkbox go from checked to partially checked. We didn't have that in our current checkbox, and so I went ahead and created a checkbox in Vsoft components that can do partial checking. And so as you're seeing, that's kind of here. Let's kind of do a better one. There's one where I can actually manually set the state of the checked. So the user itself can only check and uncheck. So basically, there's nothing the user can do to set it partial. So there's only one of two ways that the partial can be set through the state, but there's also a reference to the actual component as well, where you can set the partially checked within the reference. Um, I'm wondering if we have one. It doesn't really matter how it's done, honestly. But reset the state. Remember, checked in, checked out. We can set it back to there. If we hit it multiple times here, nothing changes. The reason nothing changes is because of how React works. Basically, if the property doesn't change. So if I'm saying set state, actually React does this as well, internal with set state. So basically, if you're setting a state variable to the value that is already there, it's not going to cause another render. Why would it? Nothing changed, right? You set it, but you set it to the same thing. There's no reason to cause another change. And so that's why you need to have the whole reset state. You need to have the reset state to actually set the internal state of the partial check to false. Then you can be in either state here and then set it back to true, hence the reset state button over here. Pretty basic stuff here. I'll go ahead, I don't let me see if there's anything else that's really worth showing before I. Yeah, here we go. So these are the ref ones I was talking about. So you can set, now this one you can do partial with ref no matter what. So I can go to here, to there, to here, to there. I don't have to reset the state because I'm using the actual ref inside of the component itself. So I can even bounce back and forth and just set these guys, and these are just setting the internal value with the actual ref function call. So there we go. That's the other part right there. One more thing, all BSoft components have dark mode enabled. So boom, boom, here's our dark mode stuff. It's just nothing really too fancy, just kind of showcasing that dark mode does work and what dark mode looks like. So that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else in the checkbox, and there's no reason to go through the rest of it because we're talking about SVGs. So we're going to stop sharing for a moment and go to the actual code here. So let's go over and let's do a screen share of the actual code. I need to go to here. All right. And hopefully everyone is seeing. They are. Good. Everyone is seeing what I've got here. So this is the checkbox component, as you can see up here. I've gone through and done a lot of headless component conversions lately, and that's why this thing is it's kind of small, but basically all this is this is just the styling, and all of the real work is done inside of the headless checkbox component. That's where all the real work of checking, unchecking, what different states are there, and all that. And then each headless base component, which the headless checkbox overrides the headless base. I actually did go through this once before. If anyone wants to go back through previous streams and try to find it, it's a while back now, but I did go through the whole headless conversion stuff that I've done. Actually, I think I made changes since I did that live stream, but that's not the point. The point we're getting to here is I talked about doing my own SVG. So here we are again. SVG, once again, this, like I said previously, this is the actual world size of the SVG, if you will. And that's the size we use to draw our different pieces. This is the checkbox. As you can see, like I said, it's XY coordinates, XY, XY, XY. So down, up. So from here to here to here. That's the checkbox. As you see, the partial one is only 4 points because you only need 4 points from here to here. And that's all you needed. It's a straight line. And so basically, yeah, I think it's a good point. What is it? It is a pair of XY. Okay, so XY. So X is going to be along the left and right axis in this case. X is going to be this direction, Y is going to be this direction. As you can see, I've got 10 and a half because we're at 21. So we're at 21 pixels. So 10 and a half is dead center of that actual component. So it's drawing right in the center. So 10.5, 10.5, 6 to 16. So a couple spaces off from the left to a couple, the same number of spaces off from the right. So it's literally just drawing a straight line across. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Allows us to have flexibility over everything that we are doing here. It kind of gives us ease of use. And if I wish to make a modification, see, I'm not tied to someone else's checkbox. If I don't like the way a certain part looks, I can just redo it myself. This was simple though. This was very simple. It took me 30 minutes, I think, to put together, just trial and error of just, figuring out the different points and just going, okay, well, here's this and this and this, try it out, get it working. It really didn't take very long. And that's really, in my opinion, kind of the beauty of SVGs. As you see here, I've got styles for the SVGs, the way things are working, left, right, top type stuff. Here's some, this is kind of along the lines of getting into some of the dark mode stuff and things like that. Here's dark mode stuff here. Right, if it's read only, how things look in read only versus non-read only for dark mode as well. People complain about Tailwind. You can, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. I don't go around complaining about people who use standard CSS, so I don't really understand the concept of people complaining about Tailwind. Um, I use it personally, and I've said this before, because to me, I've worked in a lot of very big projects that run more than just, for 6 months. I'm not there for just 6 months and leave. I've worked in projects where I've been there for a year and a half, and we've had these things start out small, and we say to ourselves, oh well, it's going to do this, we're going to do that, we're not going to let this thing get out of hand, and this and that. But then, of course, as you begin to develop, you bring in new developers. They may be maybe they weren't told how we do things, maybe they just didn't understand how we do things, maybe we just got too busy to enforce the rules, and next thing you know, what was supposed to be something simple, what was supposed to be a little, a couple of CSS files, maybe SCSS, whatever different derivative you want to use of that, now suddenly becomes this lumbering, humongous, and almost impossible to maintain series of CSS classes. I've seen people try to use BEM, which I hate, by the way. Oh man, I could not stand BEM. I used it in one project, yeah, it was one of those things that you had to try to wrap your mind around it. Some people were really good at it. I was not. And to me, it just seemed like a kind of, it made things worse almost than made things better, in my opinion. Here, I'll go ahead and stop sharing because, yeah, I good. I'm glad to see that. Here's a good comment. I love Tailwind too. So, I really do. Let's see. I'm gonna stop the sharing. I said, yeah, stop sharing. So, yeah, we'll put the overlay back in for now and just see if, of course it doesn't. Oh, there it goes. All right. All right. So, um, yeah. Where I was on Tailwind, I understand the concept. I understand littering the DOM with it, littering this. You're trading off having big CSS files for having big HTML files. But as you saw there, what that was is that was a library called classes. Classes helps you with managing, so you don't have it stuck in your class property. You actually just put it inside of classes, and then you can just put it in React. It's called class name, but that's the idea. What are your thoughts about Laravel's new UI? I have not used Laravel's new UI. I have heard, I think I've heard of Flux, but I have not used it yet, unfortunately. Um, what I've been delving into, and you might know this actually, is a lot of 3JS, stuff. That's been pretty much what my learning has been on the side lately. Is a lot of 3JS stuff. I've got a side client doing 3JS. Um, so that's where a lot of my learning has been, that and Blender. Yeah, exactly. And so that's been a lot of my learning as of late, is those two things, trying to head down that path. Um, anyways, but yeah, I like Tailwind. You don't really have to like it. Use what you want. As you saw in the SVG, I didn't go down trying to put Tailwind into that. I just used standard CSS. Use what makes sense for what you're working in. If you're working in something simple that doesn't need the overhead of something like Tailwind, then yeah, throw some standard CSS in there. If it's going to be a couple of classes and it's not really going to be a very big thing, sure. I don't sit here, and I'm not one of these developers who sits here and subscribes to, you must use this and this and this, and I'm going to be angry at you, and I'm going to yell at you, and I'm going to defend Tailwind to the end. It should be used for everything, just like people say with TypeScript, just like people say with everything. Everything has its purpose, everything has its time. I like TypeScript, and I use it because a lot of the projects I use are based around data. There's a lot of data in a lot of the projects that I use and a lot of the projects that I do. And having the ability to make sure that I don't write code, I don't go for properties that don't exist and things of that nature, is helpful. It's very helpful. But that's just the way it is. And so, yeah, that's but that's kind of where the SVGs. I'll sort of end the SVG conversation there. I'm going to pause for just a second. I got maybe one or two other things to talk about, but just for a second, it does have a prettier plugin, yes, and I use that, by the way. I use that in my in my component library you were just seeing. It has Tailwind Prettier plugin in there as well, which is really really nice. It's nice to clean it up and have it all done in a nice little order, and everything looks good and all that kind of stuff. And I'm all about that, by the way. Yeah, ESLint through every one of my projects. I definitely use it all over the place. I like to have things in order, and I think most developers who've been doing it for a long time are that way. We have our own style and our own way of doing things, and I don't think there's too many developers who've been around a long time that are really messy developers. I think by that point you've kind of figured out that you really shouldn't be that way, and so you find the tooling that works for you to keep things nice and orderly. Here, like I said, I'm gonna pause. All right, that way I can, because I'm gonna slice this. I'm gonna slice this. The live version will always be out there for people to see, but I like to do a little sliced version, so people can see just the SVG stuff if they want to have a smaller amount of time to look at stuff. But yeah, there was something I did mention yesterday. Um, I am on X pretty regularly. That is my social media where I do most of my stuff. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I have LinkedIn. I've had LinkedIn for years though. I've had LinkedIn before Microsoft bought it, long before Microsoft bought it. When they first came out, I remember when they first came out. Yeah, I remember my wife saying, "Hey, there's this thing called LinkedIn. Do you want me to sign you up for that?" Let's see here. You should try Inertia JS. I'll take a look at it. I wonder if I can save some of these things. No, no, no. Reply. No, no. Put user in timeout. I don't think I want to do that. My X profile is. How do I get away? There we go. My X profile is just my name. You're on YouTube. It's the same name, Brandon underscore Traven. At Brandon underscore Traven. It's actually right here. If you look down here, it's right. It's pretty much the same, but with an underscore in it. So the same as there, just underscore. So Brandon underscore Traven, and that's it. Yeah. So all right, cool. So yeah, I was on a space yesterday. Well, I try to attend a space called the Hunt every Tuesday usually, and usually it's about people looking, new people coming to tech, looking to get into the tech world, and someone who's been in tech for probably longer than some of these people have been alive. I mean, some of these are very young people. They're still, they just graduated college. Some of them are not even in college. They're self-taught, and so I feel it's, for someone who's got my experience level, it's good to give advice and things of that nature. And Solus, I think you can understand this one as well. I think you've said some, because I've read some of your articles. Follow a CSS superstar. I, I've I've read some of your articles, and I think you kind of understand what I'm going to say here. So I was going to say something. Oh, you now follow a CSS superstar. Okay. And so, thanks a lot. I'm hoping that's meant for me and not someone else. And I'm saying thank you, and looking like kind of pompous, but anyways. Um, but yeah, yeah. I said I wanted to make a comment yesterday, and there's a guy that shows up to that space, not all the time, but he shows up pretty regularly. His name's Lawrence. I think his handle on Twitter is Lawrence D Codes. I think, or maybe just Lawrence Codes. I can't quite remember. I follow him, but I'd have to look it up. And so, thanks. And so yeah, he made mention of something, and I think he was right on the money. He made mention of the fact of, that people shouldn't um, just put out platitudes when they're speaking to people, when they're telling people things, that people should actually, no matter what it takes, should actually just tell the truth. Um, I really wanted to say something, but I was having some kind of technical difficulties. I have no idea what's going on. People said they could. People said I was suddenly going off of mute. I was like, ah, forget it. X isn't working with me, or at least X spaces isn't working with me today. So I made mention in there that I would at least mention this today, and that's the only reason I'm doing this now, is because I want to at least get this in. So anyone who comes on and either is here right now or comes back to watch the live stream portion can watch it to the end and just see this part. I think a lot of times, and I've done some streams like this before I started doing more of the tech ones. I went through a lot more of the uh, higher level business related, personal related type stuff. And one of the things I think it's possible that people think is, when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to get a job in tech, when you're trying to go down a new path in tech, when you're trying to do anything to just learn something new, if you just want to learn something new, you want to do something that that you find fun, whatever it may be, when you're trying to accomplish something, when you're trying to do something real, um, it does take a lot of work, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. And people hear me say this a lot. This isn't something this is the first time I've said it, but I'm not sure I've actually been, really specific as to what I mean when I say it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. Because I'll have people hit me up and they'll say things like, "So what are you going to do this weekend, Brandon?" And I said, "I'm going to work on my side client, and I'm going to, try to teach myself. I'm teaching myself, 3JS and Blender, and got to get the side client done, because he is paying me to do the work, and all that kind of stuff, and this and that." And I think people think that maybe I put in like 5 hours a weekend, or maybe I put in, just a couple hours here or there, and that's all I do, just a little bit of extra time. But you know, um, that's very true, and that's actually what I've done with the whole 3JS thing. Actually, I signed up for uh, for Bruno Simon's 3JS thing, and I learned just enough to get where I needed to on this project. And then I've got another project I'm going to do and learn some more, and get into the next parts that I'm going to learn from there. Take that and learn, take that and learn, and that's definitely true. That's how you need to do it. You need to have an idea, something you want to do, and learn to get there, and then say, okay, well, let's either make it better, or let's do something a little bit more complex and make it better and make it better and make it better. That's right. You need to just kind of work your way up to it. And that is something that's advice I give a lot to people, because people ask, how do you learn this? How do you do this? How do you do that? Pick something and do it. Pick something that you want to do, if whether it's for fun, whether if you take on a client, whether you do it for your full-time job as something that they need on the side, whatever it is. Actually, I know a guy who shows up to some of these streams at my full-time job, and that's what he does. He spends his side time doing tools for the team. He wanted to learn. He wanted to learn software development, and he dedicated that time. And this is where I'm going. So this kind of works out perfectly to what I'm saying here. This is what I'm talking about. This guy dedicated 2 straight months of doing nothing but his full-time job, and then, that's right, do his full-time job, and then turn around and do and on the side do these tools that were needed by the company. And the company, and now listen to this. Here's something that's really great with this guy. Since he spent the last 2.5, maybe even 3 months of his personal time nonstop just coding and doing his full-time job, which is not coding, by the way. He's not a software developer. The company is now offering him the opportunity to actually come on and do some development for the company, actually as a developer. And that's what it takes sometimes to get what you want. This is what he wanted to do. He didn't want to. He wanted to go down the development path. He wanted to be a developer. He wanted to do software development, and he just, hunkered down. He learned what he had to. He put stuff together. Now I've been just I don't want to say I've been helping him. I really haven't been helping. I've been giving him advice. That's about as much as I've been doing. I've been saying, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this. Why don't you do this? And he goes in and he just does it. He goes in and just does it. And that's what it takes. If you really want to accomplish something, it takes that level of dedication. So when people ask me, what are you doing this weekend, Brandon? I'm working on my side project. I'm working on this. I'm working on that. Oh, well, Brandon, don't work too hard. but you got to work hard if you want to get stuff, especially if you want to take where you are and you want to change to something else, especially in things like that, especially with this guy. He wanted to be a software developer. And don't get me wrong, the company's great. And I really do like working for this company. That's why I talk about it. I've been with this company longer than I've been with any other company in my entire career. So I really do like this company, and because of things like this, because of stuff that they do like this, where they're willing to let people try something new. Oh, you want to help with the team? Okay, fine. We'll give you a chance. Here, let's give you a chance to go over here. Oh, you're going to show that you're going to put in the effort. Great. Here you go. You can have another chance. We'll put you over here and give you a chance to do that. You know, that's first of all, that's very that doesn't happen very often in a lot of companies. First of all, and how many years? I think he's only been doing the software stuff for about 3 or 4 months himself. Now, I don't know how long he's been actually learning it though, so I can't really say how long he's been learning it. He was here on the last stream I did, by the way. He was making comments about stuff on the last stream I was here, that I did here. And so, but he's getting his chance, and so he put in the time, he put in the effort, and that's what you need to do. And it takes time, and sometimes you've got to make that sacrifice. And yeah, sometimes that sacrifice means you don't go out on Saturday. Most of my Saturdays are spent with with a movie on, but I'm not really paying attention. The wife's watching a movie, she's reading a book usually, and I'm sitting there and I'm doing work, and when I make a little bit of progress, I post that progress on X. When I make a little bit more, when I do something else, I talk about it. But I work and I work and I work until I get something done, and then talk about it. Work and then talk about it. It's a constant thing, though. It's a constant thing. And if you want to accomplish anything, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. Now, yes, I don't work 24/7. I have dogs and I take them for walks and I go and do this and I go and do that. And yes, there's other things in my life besides being in front of a computer. But that's what I'm trying to say here. If you want to accomplish something, keep it real. I don't know about keeping it real. If you, I don't know what else I could do to keep it real, but if you want to accomplish something, sometimes you have to make that sacrifice. And I think, like I said, Solus here is making these comments. I know he's done some articles on things he wish, the 5 years that he's dedicated to learning all the stuff he's done. And he's doing the type of stuff that I'm doing, right, that I'm just starting to do right now, which is the whole 3JS. Is it actually video games? Is it video games, or is it just 3D interactive? I can't quite, I'm not entirely sure. Tutorial course is far more interesting than anything Disney or Netflix has published. Huh. Probably. Honestly, probably. I would not be surprised about that. But yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and end. I've rambled on for too long. There are some people in the States that are probably have already checked out. They've already tuned me out, which is fine. But I just wanted to go through that real quick. Just wanted to bring that up so people can realize that sometimes you're gonna have to make that sacrifice of time and just work hard at what you want to do. That's the best thing you can do. That's the best advice that I can give to someone who wants to change, who wants to make a change, who wants to improve themselves, who wants to do something that they're not doing right now. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, that is very true. 3JS has come a long way. I remember when it was before 3JS. I remember when the Canvas component first came out, and I mean, even then, it was still quite amazing. But it was I felt it was a little limited, but only limited, I think, at the time by computers, by technology, by what the browser could handle and that type of stuff. But now you've got computers that have GPUs. This is my new laptop here. It's got a 10-core GPU, so I mean, it's got an amazing ability to process graphics and that kind of stuff. And phones are now doing it. I mean, I you should see a website on my phone that it was a 3G. I think it was a 3GS. I know it was definitely a WebGL. It looked like a little mini video game. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, just amazing some of the stuff that's coming out now, And so yeah, it's definitely a fun time to be in that space, and it's definitely something I enjoy doing. So you can't wait to see me try web GPU. I'm gonna have to dig into that and figure that out and take a look at that. But yeah, I got to stop, guys, because I don't want to keep everyone too much longer. I appreciate all the comments there, and uh, I probably will. It's still going to be another HTML next week. Basically, my thought process on this is down the path of more DOM related stuff, how events work, how events fire, different DOM properties. Not quite going into JavaScript, but kind of, you know, just showcasing things that JavaScript can access, but not going into JavaScript specifically. That's been my thought process because I'm going, where do I go next from this? You know, I went down the SVG route. Yeah, where's the next place to go? What would I want to learn if I was someone new trying to get into HTML and trying to start off with HTML? So I think that is probably a next good place to go, because that's really where the whole interactivity of things start coming into play. That's where websites begin. That's where a lot of the web frameworks begin, and all those kinds of things. So learning the basis of that, learning where that starts, I think is a really good place to go. But like I said, I gotta go ahead and